Hello, welcome to the Control Your Cash podcast, and it is our pleasure to have Scott Goodrich. Scott is a business consultant, and the name of his business is Grow Your Damn Business. But on top of that, he and his wife own a business called Get Your Damn Haircut. And Scott's going to share with us his unique story, his entrepreneurial journey, what that led him to, and more importantly, what were some of the pitfalls that he had experienced. Scott, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for the intro, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to it. Tim, Olivia, nice to see you today. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you as well, Scott.
So, Scott, tell us about, you worked in the corporate world, and tell us what you were going through, sort of like the gestation of, you get your job, you're working in the corporate world, you think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then, what were the sort of red flags or the things that you had seen that said, this ain't my cup of tea?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had done a lot of entrepreneurial things as a teenager and coming up and then got into college, and a lot of the folks around me were accountants, and accountants get jobs out of college, and I'm looking around going, what am I going to do? Right? I didn't really have that set plan. My degree was in political science, which a lot of times leads to law school. It's what my father did. Can lead to a lot of things. Well, for me, it led to a sales job, right? Because I wasn't ready to go out on my own. So starting in sales, and then made a pivot from sales into sales leadership, and then ultimately onto the operations side, and just sort of worked my way through a couple different companies, moving my way up there. So kind of left that entrepreneurial thing behind me. In the around 2015, 2016, I took, you and I were talking before we got started here, I took one of those hits to the gut, if you will, and was in the middle of a company reduction, and realized, although I had a job and a paycheck, there's not that security that comes with that necessarily. Right, just because you have that all the time, right? There's always that chance it could happen. And so when that ended, I said, how would I get more control of what I'm doing? So had some money that I could invest, and so made the decision to invest into a franchise opportunity labeled as or marketed as absentee CEO, right? The old passive income marketing. So mistake number one, there is no such thing as absentee CEO. There is no such thing as passive income. So right there. So that's learning right about that. And we love the concept. The concept was based out of Portland, Oregon at the time, and had a really good footprint in the upper Northwest. So Portland and Seattle were sort of the anchors of the franchise. And my wife and I just loved the concept and thought it had legs. And the team that was leading it really had a really great story to tell. So it was easy for us to track in there, but the operating model was not what we expected. So lesson number two on that is that the operating model that we were handed was not ready for prime time, and unfortunately, I was trying to take some things that I learned from leading larger companies and larger teams into running a small business. Well, that doesn't work either, right? It's good knowledge, like I was, I don't know, a smart guy or a smart enough guy. But it wasn't knowledge that was going to help me get this business started in the way that it should have. And so those first few years were painful, to say the least. Trying to be an absentee CEO without a straight operating model was it was a lot of earning money on one side and putting it back into the business to just keep it afloat on the other side. Really treading water, and on certain months drowning, operating in the red all too often.
So that's a struggle that a lot of small business owners work with, which is the cash flow issue. We commissioned a research report. There's over $1 million worth of research, and it came back with what we refer to as the 3 disturbing trends that threaten small business owners and put the next generation at risk. But the number one trend, as you probably know, is cash flow. And it seems that, according to Intuit, 61% of small business owners struggle with cash flow issues. 69% of small business owners either admitted to sleeping less or losing sleep due to cash flow concerns. Now, I've worked with small business owners in the financial services sector for 38 years. And here's what I've found, Scott. Every one of those cash flow issues was self-inflicted, meaning that it wasn't the amount of revenue that the company had that was holding them back or was creating their cash flow issues. It was literally how they were using their money. I call that the financial golf swing. And when you're using the club properly in golf, it's a beautiful thing. You hit these straight, beautiful shots. But when you're not using the club properly, it could get ugly, as we all know. But the point is, how you're using your money is way more effective than where your money is. And that's what we teach our clients. We teach them how to utilize their cash flow in a much better way. But one of the things, the unique things that I liked about your story, share with our audience what your budget was as far as, you know, your revenue your overhead, and where were you from a cash position? Because that was the thing in our pre-call that really stood out and struck me.
Yeah, so let me admit to a few things here. So shortly after deciding to go into this franchise world and take this on, because it wasn't well run and because we were running in the red, and my wife was already working full time, she had never stopped working, I actually went back and got a job because I needed to find a way to bring some more cash to the table. So mistake number one is I went out and tried to find a salary that was going to allow me to keep this business going. So now when I say I'm literally moving money from one pocket to the other, right, it's going in one pocket and going out the other side, because I thought that was the answer. I wasn't fixing the fundamental challenges in the business. So Tim, your point is spot on. I wasn't actually addressing the illness, right? I was on a symptom. Oh, let me just find a way to make more money. I'm sure it'll be better next month, right? And then I'm sure it'll be better next month. So that's a wish. That's a hope. That's not a plan. Right, so and that kept going and going, and the irony, Tim, that I had shared with you here is it's a haircut and color retail storefront, right? So we got it, internet proof, right? You cannot take your haircuts online. So really thought that was great. Not pandemic proof. So right as we're getting into March, and you know, we had been on the struggle bus for some time, just as I'm describing here, with expenses outweighing revenues, weren't quite hitting the market. We thought we were in a good location, but we hadn't hit it yet. And so we went into the pandemic really struggling and doing this kind of dance with, okay, we'll make a little money here, but then we got to put it back in, or I have to invest more personal money from a savings account into this thing. And then the pandemic hit, and of course we had to shut down. That was mandated by the state. And we went back and looked, my wife and I did just recently, and in our bank account at the beginning of the pandemic, we were down to $230 in the bank account to finance this business. And it's all W-2 employees. You know, we're not renting chairs. We actually are paying people to do this, and you've got to have coverage. The model for this was a walk-in business, which means you had to have people on an hourly rate, hourly plus commission, but they had to be there in case someone did walk in. So we had no idea, no predictability. All we know is we had to have people there. Do we have to have 2 people there? Do we have to have 6 people there? You never knew, right? Because we didn't have a really good insight into that thing. I mean, it was just a lot of flawed fundamentals that sitting here today seems so obvious. But when you're in the middle of it, and I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't reaching out to anybody. We weren't getting all the support from the franchise from an operations side. Like, literally, we're looking for a lifeline, couldn't find it. We weren't aggressive in going to look at it, and just said, well, we'll just keep kind of charging and working on this one side in order to see if this thing will ever kind of catch fire magically. So a lot of bad stuff going on in those first 3 years of this little venture that we were on.
So how did you and your wife manage to work your way through that, get through it? What did you come upon, or what ideas were you able to implement that got you through all of the mud, if you will?
Well, we had some real heart-to-heart talks. You talked about losing sleep about cash flow. We simply lost sleep. Do we even want to open this thing up? Do we just take all of the losses that we've incurred thus far and close the door and deal with it, like a lot of businesses did in the pandemic? There's a lot of restaurants that way, a lot of retail storefronts like that. Tim, Olivia, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. You probably had clients or people that you know that went through that same journey.
Could I share some data with you?
Please, let's do it.
40% of all retail businesses that closed during the pandemic never reopened.
That's crazy.
And I really think, and some of those businesses were third and fourth generation businesses. It is a sin. Listen, the pandemic was bad enough, but the state's response to the pandemic was a crime against humanity. And it's really a shame what they did to small business owners.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the small business owner is the backbone of the U.S. economy, right? And to Scott's point, there were struggles going on before that pandemic, and it pushed so many people over that edge that there was no return, So a lot of people get into the small business, like Scott was mentioning, for that sense of freedom, for that sense of control, for that sense of, being in charge of your own destiny. And, it's not easy. It doesn't come with an owner's manual. There's a lot of things that have to be learned on the fly. And, if you're not going for those efficiencies along the way, it could be a real struggle, especially when push comes to shove and then the world shuts down.
Yeah, guys are spot on, right? And look, we only had so much influence we had over the state and what was going on there. And I think, obviously, uncharted waters, decisions that were being made, that were impacting folks. We could probably talk for hours on that. We didn't even sweat that so much. We just took it personally. Say, what is going to happen here? What are we going to do? Because this is our money, our savings that have, honestly, are the investment that we made. What are we going to do here? And so this is where I have to give all the credit to my wife, who decided no, and she'll be the first to tell you she's stubborn, and when she decides she's going to dig into something, she digs in. So she made the decision that, ironically, she had left her previous job before the pandemic hit by just a couple of days. We had no idea what was coming, but that had run its course. It had been 20 plus years, and she was going to do something different. Well, the pandemic hit. We were determined to do, and she said, okay, I'm going to take this challenge on. Like, I'm going to dig in both hands and figure out how to get this back going. So we took this challenge and found the gift in the challenge. She dug in, despite that's not what she wanted to do, but realized we could change our operating model. Some of it was required, so we went from walk-ins to appointments. Right, that was the first thing, to control it. The second thing is we reduced our hours, right? Big operational change. The operating model of that franchise, and I know it sounds silly, was to be open for a long period of time so that you could take people when they wanted to come in and you'd have this walk-in traffic. All sounds well and good, but if you don't have a big clientele and you're ever open for 12 hours, that's tough on staff. It was a money suck. It was just dragging money out. So we said, no, we're going to control the flow, appointment only, concentrate the clients. Right? Those are the first things. We changed the way that we compensated folks so that they would win when we won. Right? So that was an incentive for them to get on board, work their social media accounts, bring in their clients there. Right? And then we dug into the real, we went micro on the business and really started to identify those areas where there was real leakage, what was going on, where could we make moves, and just kept tweaking. And, oh, we have this challenge, we can do this here, and oh, this is the one marketing source that's really working for us, so let's stop throwing stuff against the wall and concentrate dollars here. We just got smart. The sad part of this is that we just weren't getting any of this information from our franchisor. So if you find the right franchisor, there is that playbook that's given from an operational side. But if you find the wrong one, they're really good on the marketing side, but the operating playbook for a new startup of a location is not there, because they're at a different stage or they wouldn't be franchising. They've got a mature business. And so we rewrote the playbook for ourselves. We rewrote the operational manual, operational playbook, and it just started to hit for us. We started to realize we could maximize and optimize this opportunity, and actually opening less, concentrating more, and that began the road back. And we started to see real inroads as we got into the summer and then into the fall of 2020, sort of post the pandemic. And it's been nothing but a straight upward trajectory since that time, to a remarkable degree, actually.
So that's a great point. You know, it seems like part of your DNA was this entrepreneurial spirit. And you sort of abandoned it when you got into the corporate world. But that's a fire that it's either in you or it isn't. And it was clearly in you, and that led you to, okay, wanting to be in business for yourself, control your own destiny. And, you know, getting in on the franchise side is usually a good idea because theoretically the franchisor has everything figured out, and they're going to hand you over the keys, so to speak, of a turnkey operation. But what you realized, probably too late, you know, there's an old Dutch saying that, you know, too old, too fast, too smart, too slow. And what happened is you realized, you know, we don't have the support here that we need. And
yeah, it's hard to hear that, but that's what was going on. And I don't think it was, you know, intentional. Obviously, as a franchisor, you want your franchisees to succeed. It was just what had worked for them at the time that they were building the business out in their home market was just different than opening up with no brand recognition in a new market. Those are just two different things. And so what worked in one wasn't going to work in the other, and I just don't think the playbook was adopted or adapted, I should say, adapted for opening in new markets. And then we compounded the problem by not doing the right thing. So Tim, it's funny you mentioned I'm gonna be critical of myself here, because I say I've done entrepreneurial things, and I'm on to a couple other ventures even since the haircut business got going. But an entrepreneur keeps going in the face even when things are challenging. And what I did was went back to work. So I do challenge myself. Like, is that so? The spirit is there, but is it like there are some folks that I talk to? I'm sure that you do. They couldn't imagine working for anybody else. They couldn't. They can't bring themselves even when times are at their worst. That confidence, that crazy, irrational belief that they're going to get it turned around exists. If I'm going to be honest with myself, I'm not sure that's all there. We've made a go of it through stubbornness and stick-to-itness and all those characteristics. But it's funny, you know, Gino Wickman, the author of the book, and I've used this on my podcast a little bit and share with you. He believes that all entrepreneurs are born, not made. You either got it or you don't. Now, you can still run a business out there, but he says the true entrepreneurial spirit, the true entrepreneur is born and can't think of doing anything else ever. And anything else that they're doing is just fake because they always are going to go back to the roots. And so I wrestle with this one just as I go back and forth, and I appreciate what we've done and really what my wife has been able to do and build this, and I give her all that credit for it. But that's just pure stick-to-itness. I don't know if that's that internal thing. So this is my internal debate. You're getting a little bit into my brain here. This is where I am.
Well, not intentionally, Scott, but but you know, so let's sort of pivot. So you and your wife worked your way through this, figured it out, mm-hmm. and then put yourselves in a position to profit from that. And then you had mentioned the book. We didn't mention the title. It's Traction.
Traction, yeah. It's the name of it. That's the book that all of EOS is based on, and the book that Gino wrote. You know, over 1 million copies out there. And, you know, for any entrepreneur, a must read. Just got to read it. You don't have to do all of it. You don't have to get a coach, but you're going to grab something from it. So if you haven't read it yet, and you're running a small business, spend a couple hours, read the book. pay attention to what's in there. Like there's some real gold in there, and then you can figure out what works for you from there.
Exactly. So for our listeners out there, EOS means Entrepreneurial Operating System, and Scott is a implementer for EOS. So Scott, share with us how you came about EOS, how you became certified or registered to be an implementer, and how that helps entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and appreciate your let me do that. So the journey to EOS for me comes in three parts, and part of the story that they just heard is a big part of that is just lessons learned and not wanting others to go through what I did, whether you're into a franchise or doing it on your own, and bringing those to the table. The second part of it is just this coaching gene that seems to run through me. I've been doing coaching in one aspect or another for seemingly 30 plus years, whether it was in that corporate world, doing mentoring, being part of internal company mentoring programs. I've created training classes for new managers as they're coming through. I love to see people succeed. I took a turn for 3-4 years in college, and shortly thereafter I was a basketball coach. That's just part of who I am, and I enjoy that. And that's very much what an implementer does, is just help to coach small business owners through some of these challenges. So those are those two pieces there. The third piece is really just I've been in operations and execution for a lot of years, and there's a lot of things that I've learned from that about getting stuff done. So you kind of take this execution arm, which is really what EOS is. It's about execution, right? The word systems in there has nothing to do with IT. It is about executing with discipline and accountability each and every day. So you got execution, you got coaching, so I try to bring that to clients, and then obviously sharing the story that I have around my own business, and say, hey, here's some things not to do. It's the best teacher, right? When you fail and struggle, it's the best teacher, and just trying to impart some of that and say, hey, here's a potential pitfall, here's a potential area of concern. Let's get ahead of it, or let's plan for it. Let's be intentional around what the next steps are, as opposed to being reactive. And to me, that's really the most important thing that I can bring to anyone that's got a small business and is struggling and trying to figure out a different way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, so did you come into the EOS system through the book? Is that where you first were introduced? And then how did you decide that it was something that you wanted to do and bring to other people? Sure. What connected with you there?
This is a classic case of wish I knew then what I know now, because I wouldn't have had all those struggles, and we wouldn't be having a story about my limited bank account. Because now that you're sort of in the ecosystem of EOS, it's very clear that there's some really basic things that every entrepreneur should be doing, whether they're using EOS and other systems, but there's some really fundamental stuff. So ironically, yes, I did come to it academically, right? I was talking to some folks about what I wanted to do next, and the things that I had done, and telling my story a little bit, those that were in the know said, hey, you need to read a couple books, see what this is like, see if this resonates with you, and it absolutely did. So the minute I read Traction, and then the follow-up Rocket Fuel, which is about how the first and second command, so the owner and founder, and then his or her second in command, how they interact with one another. But that combination of books really lays out the path for any entrepreneur to follow to really fulfill on what they originally set out to do in their business. And so when I read those books, I'm like, oh, well, that's me. That's the things that I really believe in. I've been doing many of them. I haven't been using the same terminology necessarily. But so that came together nicely. And then it said, well, hey, I can go out and coach. And now we're back to being out on your own again. So I left that W-2 world again, and that JOB world, said I'm going to do this on my own. And I would say that the beautiful thing is what EOS is constructed. Yes, anyone that coaches with EOS, we are franchise owners. So here I am once again in a franchise world, but they actually do have the playbook, the process system, because no kidding, right? They run on EOS. So EOS runs on EOS, so there's actually a proven process.
What they preach, right?
Imagine that. Yeah, walk the walk, talk the talk, right? So that's exactly what's doing. So, and jokingly, my wife, who really has the reins of the haircut franchise, she looks at it and goes, well, that's kind of laid out a little better than what we had, right? You may have gotten the better of the two franchises in terms of how we spend our time. And credit to EOS for what's been built out. So that platform is there. Now you have the tools. Now it's about meeting a client, making sure it's a good match, and seeing if my personality and my story resonates with them in an effort to help them. And that's a process that we go through with every client. Oftentimes a client will talk to multiple implementers and trying to find the right person for their situation, because it's a personality match as much as it is I like EOS or I don't like EOS, right? So we want to have both those things. And that's the process that we go through. But we now run our business on EOS, and I can tell you we've exceeded even our expectations in what we could do with our business after running it on EOS the last year. The things that we now do, the decisions we now make, the lens in which we view our business through, even now is dramatically different than it was just 12, 14 months ago. Because of what we've been able to bring into the business and how we run it now, using all of the tools and techniques that are part of EOS. And as we were just reflecting this, actually had a kind of a year-end review of what we did, and I'm like, wow, we do a lot of things really, really well right now that we can attribute to the framework and the system, in quotation marks, that is EOS, and how it lays out, here's the way that you want to run this business day in, day out. Really is, I can attribute a lot of our success in the last 12 months to those techniques that are in there. And I can now be a walking advertisement for how effective this can be for a small business owner.
And that's the best advertisement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because nothing could replace experience.
Yeah. And a lot of folks that are implementers come from companies that were running on EOS. So their story is very closely tied to it. So they are working for a company. They're either on the leadership team, maybe they owned the company, or they say, boy, what EOS did for me, I want to share with others. So that spirit of taking what's learned and sharing with others, that is present across 720 EOS implementers across the globe. Like that is anyone you talk to is going to have that same thing. And whether you came to EOS through the book or through a company you worked in or through someone that referred you or you were friends with someone else that was doing this, there is this genuine tie to the power of the tool. Right? And really and really truly understanding that this is fundamental change in how you run your business. But if you do follow and do dig in and are willing to do the work, when you come out on the other side, you're going to have what you want from your business, whether that is to get it ready for sale, get it ready for the next generation, Tim, as you mentioned, right? So being able to continue it on there, whether it's just to grow it to the next level. Maybe it's I want to keep it running, but I actually do want to have more time. So I'm spending 80 hours in this business, and I just want to spend 30, right? I've done 10 years of 80 hours or 8 years of 80 hours. How do I stop being in it for 80 hours? Well, there's a lot of things that we do in EOS to reduce that time in there and make it more fulfilling and maybe have it be what you want it to be, which was flexible and be proud of what you built and creating opportunity for others. Like all of that is part of the intent and what we try to do when we're bringing this forward to an organization is giving peace of mind to a business owner that may or may not have it before we met them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like beginning with the end in mind and having that intention of what you want to do and what you want to achieve and what you want your life to look like is so important. Scott, could you share with us, I know you mentioned the framework of the EOS, could you share with us a little bit more about, what's involved in the EOS, that system, and, it seems really interesting and really impactful for business owners. So, bringing to light, even a few of the most impactful systems or techniques that you guys talk about would be great.
Sure. The fundamental thing that we try to bring to business owners is really three things. One, having a clarity of vision, understanding where you're going, and more importantly, how you're going to get there, and making sure that's clear to everyone involved, your leadership team, anyone that works for you. So clarity of vision. The second is actually gaining traction in your business, and that is operating with discipline, accountability, high execution, right? Building out accountability up and down the organization so that everyone in the organization cares just as much as the owner does, which is not always the case. And the third is we work in building team health. So it can't be a one-person show. That business has no value if it's a one-person show. You need to be a healthy, cohesive team that likes working together, because that actually demonstrates to anyone that may be interested in your buying business that you actually have a business and not Tim's Snack Shop, right? If it's just Tim's Snack Shop, if Tim goes away, there's no business. But if you can demonstrate that you've got a real operating model and you can point to this is the way this thing is structured, you actually have a business that has some value. And if that's a desire of yours to sell it, get there. So vision, traction, healthy are the three things that we do for every client.
Oh, wow.
I will share two things that have made all the difference for us in our business. Okay, the first is one of the big components that we help clients with is people. We typically find that 60+% of all issues related to running a business are in the people. It's just the way it is, and so we really want to help business owners to identify, and we borrow from Jim Collins here, who are the right people, what are the right seats, right? What are the functions you really need to have to make this business go? That's a right seat. And what are your core values, and making sure that the people that you bring on are aligned with those core values. And we just say that you have to have both of those. You can't have one or the other, because if you have a right person in a wrong seat, that's expensive. They don't know what they're doing. They're nice people. That's a lot of, we find that, right? So, hey, brought my buddy in to run this company with me, but he actually doesn't know what he's doing. But I like having him around, so I keep paying him, right? That's an expensive, right people, wrong seat. The flip side of that is the more damaging one, which is a wrong person, right seat. So to any business owner that may catch a glimpse of this, if you have someone that is not aligned with your core values, but is a really, really good employee, you need to think about letting them go. Right? They may be able to do the work, but if they don't align with your core values, they are a cancer in your organization, even if you don't know what they're doing. So this was a lesson for us in our business. We had look, we're struggling for revenue. We've detailed that. We had a really high performing person, but they did not align with what we wanted from the business, what we were around, and they were killing us slowly every day with the things they were doing when we weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, that's so...
Wrong person, right seat. And until that person left, but when that person left and took all their revenue away, we actually rose. It was another thing that we broke through by just realizing that we're not going to put up with that. It sounds so simple, but to make that call when you're in a business, we don't have that. We've got a dozen employees, and it's not crazy big. But when one of those employees is doing things to work against you, bad decision, lesson learned, open our eyes right to that. So critical.
Yeah. The company culture is so important, right? And in so many businesses, as a consumer, I'll walk in and, I judge the owner by what the staff is bringing to the table. I don't blame the employee. I blame the management, because it's top down, and that culture is so important, because that's what's facing your customer, your clientele, and representing you and your business. So yeah, that's really great. And what else I was thinking about as you were talking was how scary it could be to cut off the main revenue, right? But instead, it sounds like you took that leap of faith and trusted that by staying true to your values and what you believe in and what you want to bring to the table, you were provided for even more by getting rid of what you call, cancer, that toxicity within the business. So that's a really great story and very impactful.
Yeah, I mean, this person was representing between 25 and 30% of our monthly revenues, yet they represented 10% of our staff. So this is a high performer who's no longer with us. Just did not fit. We a little bit of leap of faith to get there, but like when that was gone, other folks just stepped in, right? They took it on, and they stepped up because they saw we were willing and committed to this. And so now to today, we utilize this language with all of our folks. We have 3 core values, and if there is not an alignment on those 3 core values, we just don't have room for you, and that's okay. There's other spots out there, and frankly, there's less hairstylists than there are jobs in our market. Right. So we are always looking for people, but we're also willing to not have someone stay with us if they don't fit. And that's our force, and that allows us to have all the right people around us at the time, and that's critical, right? And it allows for, and then folks feel like they belong, and then they're going to stay for longer. It helps your retention. Your customers feel it. As they're coming through, as you described. Right? I mean, you can say a lot of things, and I mean, I use Chick-fil-A, which is a big national brand and whatever, but when you're in a Chick-fil-A, you know how you're going to get treated. I'm telling you right now, I'm a fan. I have never been treated wrongly in Chick-fil-A. It does not matter what is going on, and that's a franchise, but that is a pervasive culture, and it's real when you're in there. You'll get treated really well, by everyone that works there, and it doesn't matter what role they're playing in that business on that day. And they won't tolerate anything less.
Right, right. And that's so powerful, right? So I was thinking that way you were saying, talking through your story as well, how impactful it is to have those good experiences in these environments, in these businesses. And I would argue it's even more impactful, when it's in your community. It's good to see good people in your community and be treated well by people in your community. And, it's easy to support those businesses. It's easy to want to see them succeed and do what you can to do that,
Yeah, at last check, our little shop here has 1,100 5-star reviews on Google from our clients coming in and having the experience that they're having.
That's really saying something.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a big focus of ours to deliver that, and the comments can be humbling when you read them because of the clientele that we have and how we serve and the things that they will say about, I've never felt comfortable getting my hair cut anywhere else. This place, it allows me to be who I want to be. I can come in here, do what I want. We just allow for that as one of our core values, and it allows for that, and we live it, and it shows up when our clients talk about us and share publicly what their experiences were like. And look, you don't hit them all, but to have that kind of response, we feel really good about.
That's impressive. So, Scott, we love your story. We love how you found the gift in the struggle, came out much stronger on the other end. More importantly, we love your passion for helping business owners. So how could our audience reach you? How can we find you?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Scott Goodrich -EOS. So hopefully you can find me there. Pretty findable there. You can email me directly, scott.goodrich@EOS Worldwide. And anyone who does email me reaches out that way. I'm happy to send them a free copy of the book Traction. So if they would like a copy, get their arms around that, we can shoot you over a free copy. We still use old-fashioned hard copies, so you have one physically to hold on to and reference back to. I mean, digital copies are available, but nothing like getting the book in your hand and really digging into it. And so we encourage folks to do that. So that's Scott, 2 T's, .goodrich@eosworldwide.com. Shoot me an email. I'll send you a book.
Awesome. We appreciate that, Scott, and we appreciate you joining us today. You had a great story, full of struggles and triumph, and those are the best stories, as I mentioned in our pre-call. Everyone loves a comeback story, and we also love that you have that experience now. My dad always used to tell me, someone else's mistakes are the cheapest lessons you could learn, and we appreciate that you're here sharing that with people and bearing all, and also, here with a solution and showing people the way so they don't have to make those same mistakes.
Thanks for saying, I appreciate it. Tim, I'm much better at taking a punch these days. So I've taken a few now, so I toughen up the jaw. So can take a punch a little better now than I may have done in my more fragile early years, let's put it that way.
So that's absolutely, that's in reference to, in our pre-call we had discussed how everybody has a plan according to Mike Tyson until he punches them in the face, and then that just changes everything. And that's sort of what happens in business, right? It's amazing to see how your business has evolved. You never could have dreamed, I'm sure, that the business would look the way it does today even a year ago. And the key is your business, as much as you plan, which you need to do, your business will not, it's not a linear growth, right? It's going to have the ups and the downs, and it's going to morph or evolve into something you never could have imagined, and it's probably going to be better than you thought.
If you do the right things and willing to fight there, 100%. Every business, we like to say, every business is going to hit ceilings. It's inevitable. You're going to hit them as an individual business owner and be like, God, this is brutal. You're going to feel like you hit them as a team or a department or a company. Like, these ceilings are inevitable. do you have the tools? Do you have the wherewithal? Do you have things in place that allow you to fight through those ceilings when you hit those body blows that you're bound to face? And we just try to help you, provide you with a set of tools that you can go back to handle those when they come at you, because they're going to. You're right. It is not linear. It is not a straight line of growth. It comes with these plateaus and dips. How are you going to rebound? How are you going to stick through it? And so hopefully we've got some tools for you. But even within your own, that there's some things you can turn to get things going back in the correct direction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been a pleasure and honor to hear your story. And, I'm so happy that, you made it through and that you're here to show other people the way as well. So if anyone wants to get in contact with Scott, please reach out to him. He gave you some resources there, LinkedIn and his email. So thank you again so much, Scott, for joining us.
Thank you both for having me. Great speaking with you.